one of those tools that is just defining of Photoshop, I think, is the clone tool, or I call it the rubber stamp tool, and its ability to take one part of an image and paint it into a different area. All right, so let's open up this picture that's called Sarah here. And what I'd like to do is get rid of some of this artifacting here. So if we look right here, there's my shadow of me taking the picture. I want to get rid of this shadow. And I know this sounds, kind of petty. Just, hey, that's a pretty small area. Let me right-click and make a smaller brush here. All right, so the way this works, you have to first select the rubber stamp tool right here, or the clone stamp tool. And then we press Alt and we click once. Now what that's done is it's set an anchor point right here. So when I come over here and paint, I'm actually painting with wherever I pressed Alt. So as you can see here, I painted out that shadow perfectly. Okay? So there's a lot of other stuff going on here. Now there's a couple of options at the top. The main one I want you to be concerned with is this word aligned. Now what that means is, let's say I take her nose and I come over here, I press Alt, click once with my mouse, and then whenever I come over here and paint, I'm going to paint with her that position. Okay, now if I come over here, I know this is where her eye is, and if I click and drag, I get an eye. Now if I was to turn off aligned, okay, and I come over here and I click her nose, and I paint right here and I get a nose, what do you think happens when I move my mouse up here? Well, instead of getting an eye, I'm going to get another nose, and another nose. So, that's, if you want a repeatable item that you want to paint in lots of different locations, that's one way to deal with it. Okay, let's go ahead and revert this back. So let's talk about how we can fix this image. So let's get the shadow out again. So I'll just Alt click once and paint out this shadow. Okay, and I like to sample from different areas, and I'll show you how that works. So let's increase this hardness a little bit like this. And now I'm going to paint this little piece out from above her head, this little swimming pool. So we'll go over here and we'll Alt click once to stamp here, and I'll turn on aligned. Okay, and then we'll come over here and we'll just click and drag, and it's almost like it's magic. It just come back here and we'll paint some of this. And I'm going to do this very roughly, but I would highly recommend you zoom in to these areas. Let's zoom in here. Maybe get a smaller brush and paint that in just like that. Perfect. So we've just removed any of that grass information that we had going on behind her ear, and we've cleaned up that mess. Now, you notice I did kind of goof up right here, so I'm going to come up here and just paint in some of this grass like this. Okay. I'm getting more and more messed up back there. All right. Good enough. You can't tell when you're this small. So now let's talk about how we can get rid of this block. Now, what's neat in CS3 is this new palette option over here called the clone source. And I know we haven't gotten into palettes yet, but let's go over this one in particular, and then we'll come back after the tools and talk about palettes. So what do we got going here? Well, we can sample up to 5 different locations and switch between them, and that's nice. But what I really want to show you is the offset and the show overlay. So what I'm going to do is I want to get rid of this block. Okay. However, if I come over here and I sample this piece right here, when I come up here to paint, you notice how I'm off, right? And that's because it's just taking this right here, and because I'm on an angle, it's now adjusting it. So even if I was to paint down here, it's still way off. So what I need to do, let me undo that a couple steps, is I want to see where I'm actually going to be stamping. So if I turn on this show overlay, here is where it was going to be, okay? And what I can do is I can change this. So I can move this offset back and up like this. I'll just move it way back so there's no block involved. Just like that. And now when I sample this and I paint, notice there is no issues now, right? I can get right in there zoom in. Okay, I've got kind of a soft brush, so I'm just eating away here at this information. And what I've done is I got rid of my block. Now I can turn this off, just like that. And what you end up with is a really nice, seamless fix here on this problematic area. So I'm going to go back and just add a little bit of this grass from the neighboring area. Okay, just like that. So what else can we do with this? Well, if we do this show overlay, okay, we can adjust the opacity of the overlay, so you can either, mix them in. You can adjust the offset, which you saw me do, so the X and the Y position. But what I really think is amazing is that you can rotate it. So here, I'll crank this over, and you can see how now the dog has rotated. So if you wanted to paint that into a certain area, you could easily just paint that just like that. Okay, and then you can also adjust the scale, height and width scale. So let me zoom this out. And so you can see if I wanted to paint in her eye right here, okay, all I have to do is get a larger brush. And then when I paint, I know exactly where I'm going to be. Okay, here's her nose. So this palette and this tool work hand in hand together. Let me undo this a couple steps. All right, so let's revert this. Okay, we'll go to File, Revert. F12 is the shortcut. So here's the original, and I'll undo. And here's our painted. Not bad, right? And if you want, you can go ahead and paint out the rest of this. Put in the concrete right behind her ear. Okay, and that would be really easy to do. So we'll just sample this little concrete. We're going to show the overlay. And I'm going to set all my rotations back down to 0. And I'm just going to position this right back like that. And now when I paint, I'm going to be able to paint the blocks right out of the image. Okay, and I have to be careful because if we paint too close, we're going to actually paint my dog right back in. Okay, so there's the bottom of the image now. All we need to do is re-establish where we want this new piece to be painted in. So I'll just say someplace like right here. And I'll paint some of this. And once we have it, it'll be much easier to blend in. So we'll grab this again here. Paint this in. And I think you get the idea of how we go about getting rid of some of these problematic areas very quickly without spending a lot of time. Okay, utilizing this very powerful tool here, along with, let's do it one more here. Okay, so obviously you can still see some of my strokes and still see some of the stuff going on, but I could come in now with a bigger brush and we'll sample this area and then we'll just paint out some of those just to kind of soften things up. And there is our image. So without a lot of work, and obviously if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you want to spend your time, but if I revert the image back to the original, here's what I started with, here's what I end up with. It's not bad, right? It's passable. We could make this work. So hopefully that will spark you to try out this tool. It's a pretty amazing little tool. Okay, the stamp tool. Now the pattern stamp tool is nothing more than you can pick a pattern up here. Okay, so let's say like this checker pattern, and then whenever you paint, you're going to paint that pattern. So not as cool as the clone stamp tool, but in itself a very powerful system. Now if you're doing any type of video work, and you can watch my lesson on video, you can actually paint with a different frame of video, which is pretty amazing if you think about the possibilities there. So check out our website. We'll be having a free lesson on this particular setup here in the very near future.